He's a native of New Iberia. He's spent well over 2 decades now, 23 years, working at his alma mater. He was part of 2 SEC championship teams and 4 bowl teams as a linebacker at LSU. And in his current role, he's responsible for, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. Planning, processes, operations, sports administrator, football, basketball, liaison for the TAF, LSU Properties, the Cox Academic Center for Student Athletes, also Executive Director of External Relations in the LSU system, assisting the president, and in 2018 was recognized as the LSU National L Club Distinguished Alumnus of the Year. Other than that, he's got no titles. He's always glad to come back to New Orleans. Please give a warm welcome to my friend Verge Ausberry. Verge?
Thanks, Cam. That's a whole Bible. First, I want to start by thanking, talking about Ed Daniels. Ed was a good friend of mine, and John is so right, because every time the games get tight, I would walk out my box and walk and go sit by myself, and there would come Ed. And Ed would pretty much tell me that the answers I already knew what was happening in the game. It's Verge, what you think about that? I said, what you think about that, Ed? And our opinions would be the same. Good friend, good man. And the last text, I was just reading through the text, his birthday was July 21st, which was 2 days before mine. And I sent him a message saying, happy birthday, brother, wishing you a fantastic day. And that's how close Ed and I was. And if you're a young reporter out there in the media business, learn from Ed. Learn what he did. Learn his example of how he handled situations, how he handled people, how he handled being in the press. And he was someone that I trusted to call back. When he called me and said, "Verge, I need to talk to you," I returned his calls. He's somebody that I would share things with, and I knew was being reported the right and the correct way. That's who Ed Daniels was. That's who he was in this community. John talked about it a little bit about how our world has changed. And I'm glad Nick Saban helped you with a center, because usually my good friend cost me a lot of buyouts at LSU. But Nick, he's right though. One time Nick really helped me when he told Joe Burrow that we have enough quarterbacks and go to LSU. So that was a big help that he did for us. Our world has changed at LSU and throughout college athletics. In a few years I spoke about realignment here, realignment, teams changing conferences, and you've seen that's happening right now. Some teams in the ACC don't want to be there. A lot of movement taking place. When we talked about his roster, we talked about NIL, we're talking about rev sharing now. I mean, it's a different world. And John and no coaches, and I talked to all of our coaches in the athletic department the other day, no coaches were prepared for this. This is what the NFL does. They have a whole team. Fred and those guys and Ms. Benson have a whole team. They work with rookies. They work with free agent market. They work with their current team. They work with salary cap. They have attorneys doing all of that. We're not prepared for that. We're not in that business. That's the world we're getting thrown into, and that's the world we live in. And we don't have a collective bargaining agreement. People say about the transfer portal, how hard it is. We don't have a collective bargaining agreement like the NFL has. That's why Ms. Benson is traveling today to work on those kind of packages with the NFL commissioner. We don't have that to protect us. So a player could get, tomorrow he could leave, next week he could leave, before the bowl game he could leave. We don't have those protections. That's how much our world has changed. Young kids today don't want to be developed. I started as a sophomore and played throughout, red-shirted. Today it's hard to tell young men that. So when you talk about teams, and John, perfect example, I want to lead into that about LSU's team. You know what? I watch them practice. We look good, but you don't know what you have until those lights come on Saturday night and Sunday night. You don't know. New teams. We have the rookies, you have the core, and you have your free agents. And a lot of those free agents look good where they came from. There's a reason they came to your place. And could they perform at that high level to make you successful and to help you win? And you don't know. Also, in today's world, we don't practice like we used to practice. We don't tackle a lot. We're not physical. We don't go through the tough practices. When he played, when I played, we had 2 days. We had 3 days, okay? The day is 20 hours, and that's it. And you go over 20 hours, players don't call compliance and say, look, we're over 20 hours. That is it. That's all they do. So our whole world has changed in athletics, and it continues to change. And the court systems, you read the Hewitt case and the House cases, those are the cases. It started from the Austin money on where we are today. And that's where our businesses change. I can tell you this, we have a strong offensive line. and we have a quarterback that's been around, experienced quarterback. Now, we have to do, I'm talking to the offensive coaches, do what he does well. We were very fortunate at LSU, and you talk about the transfer portal. The transfer portal has been good at LSU also. Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, 2 Heisman Trophy winners in 5 years. So people complain about it, also, hey, you know what? We took advantage of that too pretty good. So, but the quarterback we have now, Nussmeier, he's a good quarterback. Don't expect him to be Jaden Daniels. Don't expect him to play like Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels won a lot of football games for us last year. He saved us in a lot of football games. But tell you something funny, they're gonna have bad games. Last year, first game of the year, Florida State, many people was talking about replacing Jaden Daniels. Need a new quarterback. We need to make a change at quarterback. Well, what did he do? He just went on to win the Heisman Trophy. And that's staying consistent and the coaches will tell you that, staying consistent and know what you have in your program and what you could do. We have a strong offensive line. We probably have 2 of the best offensive tackles in football starting up there. And our thing is, run the ball. That's how you win the game. Run the ball. Control the clock. You can't be scoring fast. But bottom line, you put the defense that we have great defensive coaches. You coach with Coach Baker and those guys. You know those guys. Defensive coordinator. You have Corey Raymond back in town. Great coach. And we probably have the best defensive line coach in the business, Bo Davis. We was able to bring all those guys back home to our program and to make it a better team. I think you'll see a lot of competition on defense, but this time you won't have the mistakes that you saw last year on defense. We have a whole new defensive staff here. Our weakness will be within the interior line. And that's the place where, we're going to struggle a little bit. And those guys have to come on. We have a lot of young guys there, but really you have to depend on some of the older guys. It always makes me nervous because this summer we were taking offensive linemen, moving them to the defensive line. Usually it's the opposite way around. Defensive linemen, offensive linemen going, defensive linemen going to offense. But we did vice versa. So that's show you how short we was on the interior line. So that's the area that really, really gives us some concern. First opponent, USC. And as you know, great game, Las Vegas, Nevada, open up the season, prime time, Sunday night. Everybody in the world will be watching LSU. And that's what we want to do. We want to do our brand. We'll build that brand that we have. That's LSU. We play those type of games. Next year it's Clemson, home and home. And from there on, we have a lot of big games lined up. But it's going to be a tough game. A game that we're favored, but that doesn't mean anything. Because like I said, nobody knows exactly in the scout reports what we have. Lincoln Riley's probably going through the same thing that Jordan, every other coach in the country is doing. What that guy, what is he, and how he's going to perform when the lights come on. Rest of the season, typically SEC season, I've circled one game. Everybody worried about the Ole Misses in Alabama. So you're going to be up and ready for those games. We have a trap game on our schedule, South Carolina, that third game. You play a big game at USC. Hopefully you win that. You have Nicholls State. And we're going to play more and more state schools. That's important to us. And I'm going to talk to Tulane about getting back on the schedule here and ULL and all those teams. I think it's important. And where we're going now with the costs, we talk about LSU. I do have concerns about my sister schools in the state, from Tulane to ULL to ULM to Nicholls and McNeese, all those schools. Next year is $22 million of our budget going to rev sharing. Everybody in the Power Four is $22 million. That's a large number. So when you see what the people are saying at Ohio State about the changing and how sports might change and other sports might change, those things are real. And we look at everything. Everything we have is on the line right now. Every budget decision we make is on the line right now. And changes are coming. And we don't know how far these changes are going to go, but they're coming. So our thing is, what we're going to do? We're going to stop scheduling these schools from way out there. We're going to schedule Louisiana schools and keep the money in state, help the programs in the state of Louisiana. And as a flagship institution, that's what we should do in this state. As I say, it's always a tough season. It's an SEC typical season. Our goal at LSU is to make it to the playoffs. That's the most important thing. It expanded. It's 12 teams. We need to be in those 12 teams. And that's when more pressure can come on coaches. And Coach Kelly understands it. He gets it. He's a long-time coach, an old coach. He understands the business, how it works. You have to be at the top. You're compensated. Your staff is compensated that way. And the program, we put a lot into that program to make sure that we're in the playoffs and compete for national championships. That's what we have to do at LSU. When I say being consistent in our business, and the coaches get this here, sticking with your coach and supporting your coach as an administrator. I told all the coaches that the other day, we stick behind you, we support you, we're going to give everything it is to be successful. It's not about my position as executive AD to be out front. You see, Scott, we're not out front, we're in the back. Help support them. You know, you look at the SEC, and that's including Oklahoma and Texas coming in, there's only 3 coaches right now that have been at their institution starting this year longer than 3 years. Kiffin, Kirby, 2 national championships, and Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Every coach in the SEC is starting their 3rd year. And you have about 5 or 6 on the hot seat this year. And that playoff system is going to make it really, really tricky, because if your team not in the playoffs for 2 years, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on a lot of us in the business to start making changes. And that's really a sad stat that I just named. That's how much the turnover has been in our business. And now you have to worry about players coming in and going out, which is the team look like. Every year your roster changing and what you have. There's a lot of pressure on these guys here. I respect the job they do, what they do. But thank you for having me. Always enjoying being here with the Tigers.